Welcome everyone. So in this video I wanted to talk multi-tools a little bit, kind of follow up a previous video I did where I was just talking through having recently gotten the Leatherman Surge after using the Arc for a couple years. I think it's been a couple years. Pretty much got the Arc on its release, so however long it's been since then. And one of the things that I really wanted to explore once I got the Surge, and just like everyone talks about it, it has the impression of being more of a serious, like doing real work tool than just an EDC pocket thing. To really test that, I thought we were going through the house trying to tidy up certain areas of it, and an opportunity I thought presented itself to kind of kill two birds with one stone. I've kept a tool bag in sort of a nook kind of in the center of the house for a while, and my toddler son kept getting into the tools and whatnot. So I decided, okay, I'm going to put some of that stuff away in a closet. It's there if I need like real tools, real screwdrivers, wrenches, that kind of stuff. But let me just keep a small bin somewhere in the house with some bits and a few accessories. And as much as possible, try to just do random little hobbies, tasks, honey-do list kind of stuff around the house with only a Leatherman with these accessories and see how that goes. That would sort of force me to rely on it more. That's been a cool experience for me, and I differ probably a little from some people who say I carry a Leatherman just for like one-off 2-second things, but I will always grab the quote real tool if I'm going to do a project. For me, yeah, I'm not saying you would never need real tools, but I've actually been very surprised doing this how often I just get by with the Leatherman and some of the extra little accessories, and that's been very interesting for me. From like going outside to doing some gardening work to puttering around building shelves for stuff to assembling like a wire rack that my wife got for her clay studio, all kinds of things like that. And it has shown me where often I'm reaching for the Surge. This definitely carries better in the pocket, no doubt. But there are a couple ways that I think I opt for the Surge generally now. And part of it is just, it continues from my early impressions I talked about in a previous video where the shape of the Arc is just very boxy and it's kind of like sharp on the outside. So if you're, say, using the knife and you're gripping it hard to like cut something, it digs into the hands for sure. Now it's a bit more rounded once you have the pliers out and you're bearing down on it, but the locks here I mentioned before do dig into the palm of the hand a little bit. I don't notice that on the Surge, but something else I noticed the other day using the scissors. I was going to cut zip ties. It was actually when I was unpacking the box of a wire rack set for my wife, and my son and I were just working on a project assembling that for her. All of the packs of different parts had a heavy zip tie around them, so I had the Arc on me, and I cut one of the zip ties. They were a heavier gauge zip tie. Cut it with the scissors. It cut okay, but the degree of pressure that I had to use with my thumb, it was uncomfortable with the Arc. And I would say this is more of a like, if you have one thing or a couple things you're going to cut and this is right there, sure, why go get a regular set of scissors? Just use this and it was okay. But the first one that it was like hard on my thumb, I was like, you know what? I've been doing this comparison anyway. Hold that thought. And I ran in my bedroom and got the Surge and then pulled out its scissors, thinking, well, you know, hard to beat the big scissors on the Surge. And sure enough, when I went to cut those same zip ties with that, much more comfortable on the finger. And so that stood out to me because it wasn't something I talked about earlier in the ergos and stuff of the Surge. I've come to sort of think of the comparison between the two of these the same way that people always talk about the iPad Pro, and there's always the debate like, should I get the 11-inch or the bigger 12.9/13-inch version? Everybody differs on that. I have both in my household, so I've had the ability to kind of swap between repeatedly. And I feel about the multi-tools much the same way I think I've come to feel about the iPad Pro, which is to say that I will echo a sentiment I've heard other people share in comments. The 11 is much better to carry, except the minute you sit down and actually like use it instantly, the 13-inch is way better. And I just feel that about these where, yeah, this is definitely more pocketable. It's not as much weight to carry around. It's not as big. But every time I do any kind of real project with it, the pliers, the scissors, the knife, etc., this, like the bigger iPad, just feels way better to use. And for me, since this has become a tool that I use on almost a daily basis, I feel like I hug that line People often say like Leatherman users are usually like either you're mainly just using it to open Amazon packages and once in a while you need the pliers, or you're a blue collar tradesman. I'm probably somewhere in between. I'm not a tradesman as a day job, but I love being handy. I love playing with tools. We live on a bigger property than I used to when I had first gotten the Arc, where I was in the suburbs. And so I just find opportunities to get out and do handy tasks, building something, fixing something, walking around the property and saying, oh, I can tighten this up. I can something. I end up using the Leatherman for something pretty much every day. Sometimes it's a bigger project, sometimes it's a small one. And so to me, it's more than just a knife with an extra feature, and that is really where the Surge has begun to shine. One other thing I figured I'd mention too, because people always talk about like whether you just carry it in the pocket or if you use the belt holster. I have in some cases started carrying the Surge in the holster, and not necessarily because I think the Surge is so big and heavy that it can't work in the pocket, because I do carry it in the pocket fairly often. But we've had a very hot and humid summer this year, and when I've been outside mowing the lawn, there is no way to do that without just getting super sweaty. And some days I've been sweaty enough where my pocket and my jeans is wet. It gets the tool damp. Now I realize these are relatively stainless steel, but I have noticed some minor discolorations on it from doing that, and so some days I'll wear it in the pouch just to kind of get it out of the pocket for that reason. And I think that's a good way to do it. I like carrying a multi-tool when I'm outside doing even lawn mowing tasks, because every once in a while I'll run into something like, whoops, there was a small string or something from one of the toys or something in the backyard, the lawnmower runs over and I got to tip the mower over and use the pliers and the knife to like get it out of the blade. There's random stuff like that where just having the tool on you is super helpful instead of walking all the way across an acre or so to the tool shed to get that kind of stuff. And that's where I think having a multi-tool really shines. People that say, oh, the multi-tool is pointless, always use the real tool. Yeah, but you're not going to carry a toolbox around with you. And if you have a semi-large property, especially if you live on a farm, I don't, but if you did, if you're way out somewhere and you happen to have this, you're like, I'm not walking all that distance to go get a thing. Even for me, like, the reason I had the tool bag in the house was to avoid having to walk all the way out to my tool shed. Kind of laziness. It's not that far, but I don't want to have to do it, and carrying this in the pocket is even better, and the Surge is just so capable for that kind of stuff that I have found for me is sort of simulating being a handyman, maybe not like a hardcore electrician or someone working in construction, but for handyman type tasks around the house, a multi-tool is sufficient 90% of the time. And even though technically a real tool is more ergonomic or something in some cases, definitely having a real screwdriver sometimes feels better. But for a lot of the puttering around I do, I would say this is fine. And so it is kind of actually that experiment I did of like put the tool bag away and just try to use the multi-tool like all of the time. I've been very pleasantly surprised how well that's worked out for me, and that's kind of just become my go-to now. And each day I kind of suit up. You put the tool in the pocket and you're like, now I'm ready. I would echo one other sentiment I've heard people say when they're talking about not necessarily just the Arc, but like the smaller tools, the Free P4 or even the Wave in some cases. You would bring that if you're just going to be out and about for the day and you're like, here, this way I've got a really nice MagnaCut knife on it, and if it turns out that I need scissors or pliers, I've got them in a pinch and it works okay. But this is more of an in a pinch tool. It's nice, it feels premium, but the pliers are in a pinch. To me, the Surge is what I would pick if I were going into the day knowing I'm going to hang with my son for the afternoon. We're going to go outside and do some handy tasks. I'm deliberately going to be doing projects and stuff like that. I would bring this for sure. It's just way better experience for all that kind of stuff than the Arc. The weight doesn't bother me if I'm going into it knowing this is what I'm doing today. I'm doing tasks. Its sheer capability to me justifies the extra weight of it. And I like the Free series, but it just doesn't like have that I'm going to get into something and like make it happen and build stuff. Not the same way that the Surge does. I don't mean to dump on the Arc. I like it a lot. Like I said, I was excited enough to get it right on release. I carried it every day in my pocket for at least a year. But as I compare them now, I definitely feel myself more drawn to the Surge. And as nice as the Arc is, if you told me you can only have one of these and you have to give up the other one, which would it be? As nice as the Arc is, it would be the one I would give up. No diss against its use or the Magna Cut. I just feel like if I only was going to be able to keep one of them, this one is just so much more capable. I feel like I would be making a concession to only have this one, whereas this one, I'm ready for anything. Now, yes, it has a lower grade knife steel, but I'm somebody who does maintenance on his tools on a regular basis anyway. I never let my multi-tools get too dirty, or I never let them really get rusty. If there ever is minor corrosion or like gunk stuck up in somewhere, I'll use a plastic wire brush and I'll get it out. Anyway, so as someone who's often maintaining his multi-tool, putting the knife on the strap, every week, that's not a pain in the butt to me. And so I say that to say the 420HC blade it is a step back, yeah, for sure, from the Magna Cut, but it's not one that makes me like frustrated all of the time. And down the road, I might even look at some of the replacement steel blades that they sell in third-party markets. I've seen some that were M390, supposedly. We can never be sure from some of those places that's what it is, but I want to check out some more opinions on that. If people think that it really does hold an edge better than the 420HC, I feel like between this and the Arc, that's the only real, that makes me feel like I'm making a concession, is the lower grade knife steel. And if you could solve that with a third-party solution, to me, there would be almost no reason to go back to the Arc most of the time. So anyway, those are just some more thoughts as I get going. I just wanted to talk tools for guys who like to watch videos about tools. Share your experiences below. What do you do with your Surge? Or if you have other multi-tools you prefer to the Surge, tell me about it and what makes you so drawn to them. How do you use your multi-tool every day? Are you using it pretty much daily for handy tasks, or is your use more, I throw it in a backpack and it's occasionally useful every once in a while? I would love to hear from you. I like just knowing how other people use their stuff as well. All right, guys. Well, thanks for bearing with me, and I'll catch you in the next video, I hope.